You know, when it comes to video game development, I think we as gamers, as customers, we take for granted the amount of time, effort, talent, money, dedication it takes to develop video games. It's perhaps one of the most arduous, tirelessly unappreciated form of art out there that people constantly feel so entitled for. It's crazy, but and that's the thing, because gaming is also one of the most lucrative industries out there. Multi-billion-dollar industry that, compared to the music industry, movie industry, it just does not compare. And I think it's because of just the amount of passion that is on both sides, the gamers and the game developers. And you have to understand that game developers in their own right also self-insert their life experiences, their specialties into the games they work on for so many years. And I think the weirder the developer, the more interesting of a game we get. One of the most weirder icons in the industry is Yoko Taro, who is an eccentric and beloved creator behind big games like Drakengard and the Nier franchise, who has recently voiced a rather somber sentiment regarding the state of modern AAA game development. He reflected that in his 30-year career, he remarked that there are fewer weird people involved in games today. And he feels that this trend is limiting the creativity and the unique flair that once defined the industry. To be honest, I don't think he's wrong about that. I think what has happened is that the budgets of AAA games have bloated to such an enormous degree. They went from $50 million to $90 million to now $400 million. You got Rockstar reportedly they're spending anywhere from $2 billion on Grand Theft Auto 6. That's the level we've reached. Now, what would happen when a project has such a massive budget? Well, that means you're going to have to make sure you get your money back. And this is where the executives step in with their focus groups and their little executive notes, and making sure that they create something, a piece of entertainment that's going to not only break even, but make profit. And so what would happen is that creative limitations start to take place. It's like, oh, this is too risky, we can't have this. Oh, this is too weird. And I think it also affects the developers who perhaps want to do something a little bit unique, that's something that stands out. And the executives don't want that because they're putting in $100 million on the line. And it's like, I'm not sure I want to take this creative little risk. And I'm not sure I want the game to be that weird that it might actually not be lucrative or viable for the market. Taro has talked about the approach to game design and storytelling. He expressed a concern that today's AAA studios are more risk averse. They don't want to take those risks. They prioritize profitability over artistic expression. And this in turn has led to a more formulaic and less adventurous approach to game development. I mean, if you see what's been churning out in the live service scene, those multiplayer battle royales and extraction shooters and the next Fortnite, nothing about them is all that special. Nothing about them revolutionizes that genre, changes the industry, leaves a lasting impact. Only the ones that do actually take creative risks. And we've seen them every year. There's always one game that really stands out from the crowd. Expedition 33 came out recently, developed by a small team that stepped out of Ubisoft and had a passion to create something new for the turn-based combat genre. And here we are, now everybody's celebrating the underdog success. Imagine now if Ubisoft did not, what if Ubisoft actually took the time to cultivate that team and allow them to do that type of project under their name? Then everybody would be praising Ubisoft, right? Taro's observation is rooted in the shift that has occurred in the industry as it grew into a multi-billion-dollar business. While there are still outliers like Hideo Kojima, who brings weirdness and originality to their projects, the overall trend in the AAA games has moved towards safer, more commercially viable products And so Taro traces this shift back to times when he was working on projects like Drakengard, a game that, despite its relatively standard gameplay, was made unforgettable by its bizarre and dark narrative. And then we have even, Nier, which is just as bizarre but just as memorable. This willingness to embrace strange and unconventional means, he believes, is what really is missing in today's big budget game development. I mean, guys, we have to look back at a really great piece of history in gaming. We look at Hidetaka Miyazaki, who worked on Dark Souls. At the time, he got the chance to be the game director to Demon Souls in 2009, and that was considered by PlayStation and From Software as a throwaway project that's bound to fail. And he had the chance to do something completely different with this project, so much so that it has defined an entire genre that we call today the Souls-like. And then came Dark Souls, then came Elden Ring, and he won the award of Game of the Generation, right? It's when developers can be weird, they can be unique, and be creatively special, and take risks that they can create things that maybe, sure, might not be what sells, but it's what will be remembered. And if it does sell at the same time, that's also a great success. I think you can find a balance of not spending $100 million on a project and taking creative risks. You can kind of do both. You can trim down a budget, make reasonable decisions, and also make creatively risky choices as well, because that's what we need in this industry. It does become, especially when it's so competitive and so saturated in every single genre, you have to do something different. You have to be a little bit weird. You gotta stand out from the rest, because if you don't, you're just the next game that's trying to do what the last big game did. And you're not gonna get a share of the pie. This is how it is. But you guys let me know, what do you think? Are we losing more weird game developers in the AAA space? Perhaps they're going into the indie scene, which is kind of what I'm seeing these days. But do let me know, share your thoughts. Would love to hear from you guys. We're going to take a short break. Actually, I'm not going to take a short break. It's the end of the show. I got a little bit wrapped up in my discussions. But that pretty much wraps up the Evening Buzz. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll catch you guys on the next episode every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday from 8 till 9 p.m. right here on Pulse 95. We'll catch you guys later. This is Mikail Atiyeh signing out. Have a good one.